I have always been here.
Greetings everyone, it is the Ambassador and welcome to another Ambassadorial editorial. And as always, if you are a newcomer to the Ambassadorial wing, make sure you hit that like button, share this out with all your friends, and if you enjoyed this video, consider hitting that subscribe button. And today, I'm going to be doing a follow-up on a movie that I just recently did a watch party for, and that was, of course, Batman vs. Superman, the Ultimate Edition by Zack Snyder. And I did my watch party, and I really enjoyed this film. I will not lie to you all. It was a great film. Truly, truly great film. But I went back and I was like, I really want to rewatch this because I felt like I was trying to pay attention to the chat. This was the first time watch through for me. And I was like, I feel like this deserves another watch. And I just yesterday did do another viewing, just privately on my own. And I picked up on something that I had noticed the first time through, but it became a little more clear. And today's editorial topic is going to be a debate on the use of power. Because you've got three dynamics within BVS that are very interesting to me. And it's the use of power by three individuals in particular. One is obviously Superman, Kal-El, Clark Kent. The other is Bruce Wayne, the Batman. And then, of course, Lex Luthor, who is, well, Lex Luthor. But the thing I found interesting about this movie was the fact that Snyder was trying to create this space in which the use of power could be explored. And what do I mean by specifically by the term of power? Well, you have three very different dynamics in terms of the three individuals I just listed: Superman, Batman, and Lex Luthor. Superman, quite literally, is a superiorly powerful being. He is nigh indestructible. He has super strength, super speed, all the things we know that Superman has. But he's still in the early stages of his career as Superman, as the Kryptonian. As with Batman, Bruce Wayne has been the Batman for, as we can figure at this point in BVS, for decades. For 20 plus years or more. And he has exercised his degree of power to another end. He has been fighting crime within Gotham City. And he has a pretty good sense of who he is in terms of his place in the world, the power that he wields as the Batman, and the authority through which the power that he has brings. And then, of course, you've got Lex Luthor. Now, obviously, this is a different iteration of Lex Luthor than what we've seen before. Now, I will say, if you preferred the animated version of Lex Luthor, or the comic book version of Lex Luthor, or even the Gene Hackman, the one I grew up with and a lot of us grew up with, that's great. But honestly, I found this version of Lex Luthor very intriguing, very interesting, because he has a somewhat deranged quality to his personality. He seems very off balance. And that might be a subject for another video I'll do down the road. But I want to focus primarily on the dynamic of the uses of power and what I think Zack Snyder is trying to say in this movie in terms of the three focuses of this movie, that being the characters I just listed. But I found it very interesting the way that these three characters played off of one another, in particular with Batman and Superman, obviously with Lex Luthor. As I mentioned already, Superman or Clark is still trying to figure out the extent of his abilities and how he can utilize them in the world that he exists in. Now, he grew up, obviously, as we know, on a farm in Kansas, in Smallville, Kansas, and he became a journalist at the Daily Planet. But he's got this whole other life, this whole other identity that he's having to keep from the rest of the world. Because, one, he's not sure how people will receive him. But also, he's got people in his life that he's trying to protect, namely his mother, Martha Kent, and obviously the woman that he loves, Lois Lane. And yet he has all of this incredible astronomical power, but he's wrestling with how best to use it. He's unsure of himself. And as we go through this movie, we have several other characters bring up the question of, we are asking if Superman should do the things that he's doing. And I think that right there is a very interesting dynamic to play with within a superhero movie, because it's something that we don't often ask. Because oftentimes the characters that we deal with in comic book movies, they're not all powerful. And oftentimes they are like us. They're human, but they have special skills or abilities that they're granted through their own genius, their own mind, or some external force. But Superman, quite literally, and obviously as we all know, is an alien. He comes from another world. He comes from the planet of Krypton that no longer exists. And after the events of Man of Steel, he is seemingly, as far as we know up until this point, alone. There are no other Kryptonians out there in the world except for him. And he has no one really to guide him and show him the way. There could have been potential with him and General Zod, but General Zod doing what General Zod did, Clark has hand-forced. So Clark is still, or Kal-El is still trying to figure out his place in the world and the powers that he has, the power that he wields, how he can use that in ways that would be of benefit to humanity, to his adopted home world. And that, for me, I thought was an incredible plot point or character arc to place in a movie or in a series of movies like Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman. And I'll be interested to see what becomes of Clark in the Snyder Cut Justice League, which comes out in a couple of weeks. But that kind of brings me to Batman, Bruce Wayne. Now, we all know the backstory of Batman. Parents were murdered in an alley one night after coming home from the movies. Grew up in a family of means, of privilege, of power. Studied for many years to become a master of many things. Martial arts, detective skills, escape artist, you name it, Bruce Wayne studied it. To become the very best, to become the peak human being. And he did it. And he wields this incredible power, this incredible authority. And he uses it to fight crime in Gotham City. Now, at the point that we meet Bruce in BVS, he's somewhat of a broken man, and we're not exactly sure why he is the way he is now. We get some hints through the dialogue and through seeing that defaced Robin suit that says, "Ha ha ha, joke's on you, Batman," and we assume that it's Robin's suit, and we see that it's some sort of fireplace poker or some sort of metal rod that the costume is holding. We can assume that Robin was killed by the Joker. And Bruce, as a point and in a mindset, we're seeing Superman is causing him to be afraid, to be irrational, to not act in the way that we generally know Batman to act. Because most of the depictions we've seen of Batman, he's very calm, he's very calculated, he's very cool, he's very reserved. And to a certain degree in BVS, Bruce Wayne is like this. But his fears of what Superman could do, on top of seeing the nightmare scenario, that brief little scene there in BVS where we see the Omega symbol carved into the surface of Earth, we see the fire pits, and we see Bruce captured by the Superman soldiers, and then Superman himself. And Bruce is driven to be afraid of Superman without any real cause. And he's using all of his skills and abilities to an end that we would say, Bruce, what are you thinking? This is a good guy. This is a guy that's trying to find his place in the world, who needs a mentor. And quite literally, Batman could be that mentor if he was in the right frame of mind. But unfortunately, he's using his power, his authority, to destroy Superman, because he's been driven to the brink of instability. And that's unfortunate because, as I've said, Batman oftentimes is all these things that we know him to be. And in this version, in this particular movie, he's acting very much out of character. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. But the thing that I found very interesting is the interplay between Clark and between Bruce, particularly in the chase scene when Lex is bringing that hunk of kryptonite to his lab and Batman's chasing him down in the Batmobile. And you have that first face-to-face confrontation. And the amazing thing is, Superman could have ended Batman right then and there. Just ended him. Done. But he exercised restraint with his power. But unfortunately for Bruce, all it did was drive him even further to believe that Superman is a threat. And so he's going to use all of his power, all of his skill and ability to bring down this threat. And of course, throughout the course of the movie, we see that, especially in the third act, Bruce finally has that realization. When he's right there, he has gotten Superman in a vulnerable state where he can essentially kill him. And he pulls back for a moment because of something that Superman says, and he's like, you're letting them kill Martha, and it triggers a memory in him of the night that his parents were murdered. And all of a sudden you see Lois come swooping in and say, that's the name of his mother. Lex has got her. And just like that, Batman snaps out of it. He's like, I will use all my skill, all my ability, all my power to save your mother. And obviously he does. He succeeds. And then, of course, that brings us to, of course, Lex Luthor. Now, and this version of Lex Luthor might deserve a complete character breakdown video of his own, because I could quite literally do a whole series of videos on this one movie. And if y'all are interested in me doing something like that on BVS, I'd be more than happy to, just would have to schedule the time to do so. But this version of Lex is so rich and so deep as a character. He sets your hair on end. He's so creepy. But he has built himself up as a great intellect. He has this massive corporation, LexCorp, which obviously, as he mentioned in the movie, his father built. His father created. But through his means, instead of doing something altruistic, doing something noble, doing something good with his power, with his ability, he decides instead to pit Batman versus Superman. He's manipulating all of these forces that are seemingly greater than him against each other. And I find that honestly impressive and amazing. Impressive because if you think about it, Lex Luthor is a dark mirror image of Batman, minus the suit, obviously. But he has the intellect, he has the resources of a Bruce Wayne. But instead of doing what Bruce does with his power, with his authority and his ability to do good in the world, instead he uses it to selfish and destructive ends. And unfortunately, we see the ramifications of his actions throughout the course of Batman vs. Superman. He captures Martha Kent, he captures Lois Lane, and he sets man and God, as he says, against one another. But then he goes one step further, and he uses his intellect to create a super being through the wreckage of the Kryptonian ship from Man of Steel. And of course we get Doomsday, or a version of Doomsday, let's put it that way. But you've got these three incredibly dynamic characters that are battling each other, not just with their fists, but with their wills and with their intellect, and bringing all the power and ability that they have within themselves to bear on one another. But in the end, it's Superman's, it's not his power. It's his courage. It's his selflessness. It's his power to look beyond himself and see what needs to be done. And even Batman and Wonder Woman have come to that realization themselves. But Superman, Clark, Kal-El realizes he's the only one that has the highest percentage of success of destroying Doomsday. And obviously he does. But I kind of want to get back to Lex Luthor, because throughout the course of this movie, he is manipulating everyone around him. He is obviously a very high intellect. He has a very high IQ, and he has a very sharp mind. And he knows how to read people, how to turn them, to twist them, to bend them to his will. I mean, even at one point in the third act of BVS, you see Superman, seemingly the most powerful person in this film, down on his knees before Lex Luthor, which I will say this for Zack Snyder, if he was mirroring that scene in Superman 2, when Superman kneels before Zod, or even when the President of the United States kneels before Zod, perfect. Absolutely, positively perfect. But the thing about Lex that really intrigues me is he has these great lines of dialogue. And while some people may say they are extremely cliche, I disagree. I don't think they're necessarily cliche. I think there's truth in what he says. When he says to Superman there in the Kryptonian ship after Batman and Superman decide to ally with one another, and Lex says, I hate not the sinner, I hate the sin, and your sin is existing. Because Lex realizes his power is being threatened by Superman. His ability to just run roughshod over everything and everyone is threatened by the existence of Superman. He sees Superman as imperfect. He sees him as a threat. But he doesn't see him as a threat to the world. He sees it in a very narrow, microscopic view. At least that's my perspective. He sees him as a threat to his own power. And I think with Lex, with his perspective, it really gives us the opportunity to see that power, what can happen to a person, the wrong type of person with power in their possession. Because his power, he only uses to destroy, to tear down, to break, and to bend to his will. Whereas Superman uses his power to be a source of hope and inspiration, to right wrongs in the world the best that he can. And with Batman, we see the mirror image, the light mirror image of Lex Luthor. We see a man who has power, who has ability, who has capability and skill, and uses those, at least in the terms of Bruce Wayne, to do good in the world. But you have that other persona, the Batman, which there's always been this great debate. Which is the real face of Batman? Is Bruce Wayne the man the real face, or is Batman the real face of the character of Bruce Wayne? But the Batman, up until a point, sees nothing but a threat in the person of Superman. But when he finally realizes that Superman, though alien, is just as human as he is, he aligns with a man who, though rivals his own power, he sees the potential and he sees the opportunity to do something great with the Man of Steel, with the last son of Krypton. And of course, we have the incredibly heart-wrenching conclusion at the end of BVS, where we have the two funerals, and then we have the vigil for Superman, for Clark Kent, for Kal-El. And I'll tell you all just real briefly before I close out. Watching BVS for the first time a couple of weeks ago, I finally understand what so many people who I call friends have been saying for so long about BVS, the Ultimate Edition. It is truly one of Zack Snyder's very best. And I do want to say to Zack Snyder, you probably won't ever see this. I wish you the very, very happiest of birthdays. And I hope there are many more that lie ahead of you. And I hope your career continues. I hope you continue to bring us great films like Batman vs. Superman or whatever else you do in your career. Zack, you have the Ambassador's respect. I have respected you as a filmmaker ever since I saw your remake of Dawn of the Dead. And I look forward to what you have to offer us in your version of Justice League. So, anyways, folks, that's going to be the video. Again, if you want to see me do some follow-up videos on the topic of Batman vs. Superman, let me know down in the comments below. I really did enjoy this film. I don't rarely do follow-up videos on a movie that I've watched, but I felt this was a topic that was of interest, and I thought this would be a good conversation starter. So by all means, if anything I said during this video struck you, comment down below or reach out to me on social media. I'm just about everywhere, everything. And let me know your thoughts. And again, thank you all for tuning in today. As always, smash that like button. And if you come across this video and you have not become a member of the Ambassadorial wing, consider hitting that subscribe button. That all being said, folks, you all have a great day. I will talk to you all later. And until next time, this is the Ambassador, signing off.